present our special area of interest these days, which is vacuum channel transistor and follow-on compute capability. Nanodevices Corp was founded specifically to commercialize the NASA patent that Jim Wuhan and his colleagues invented. And there are a number of different options for using the device in Jim Wuhan's work. He specifically laid out a lateral design, which is typical of integrated circuits today, whether they're Intel or other kinds of applications. In our particular case, in commercializing the vacuum channel transistor, we took a look at a number of different factors that were involved. One of them was being able to use a different technique to reduce the footprint of the device and so enable a greater density on a particular wafer, on a particular chip. And the other critical value of interest is adding a degree of freedom. So from the beginning, we're interested in being able to do a three-dimensional integrated circuit. And so rather than have the vacuum channel device sitting on its side laterally, we decided to tip it up and do a vertical device. So the type of device that we're looking at is kind of based on a really long tradition of producing bulk electrons for a number of devices used in space and other applications where using thermionic emission by heating up a cathode just wouldn't work and wouldn't last long enough for a space mission, for instance. And so the intent of these devices developed by Capspian at SRI, along with his team there, Chris Holland and others, working in the team since Ken Shoulders basically decided that, hey, even though semiconductors have come along, we're not giving up on vacuum. And what you see here is a field emission array that basically was invented 50 years ago in 1968 and started out as a fraction of an inch in size and has since then continued to develop in kind of the same vein that transistors and integrated circuits have developed with Moore's law, in that every time they reach a particular level of sophistication, they manage to reduce the size and increase the efficiency in the production of electrons. So from fraction of an inch to this particular photograph, which was taken in 91. Today, the actual size of a single cathode sharpened tip is on the range of 50 nanometers. So the actual basis of the vertical channel device, which we call V2FET, basically vertical vacuum field emission transistor, is that this is kind of like the base. This is the emitter, and having a sharpened tip, as it did in the lateral device that Jim Wuhan and his team developed, basically allows you to get around having a high voltage to operate a device on. Now, all these devices that use this particular spin type tip or other tip that's sharpened in some way to produce the electrons is fundamentally the same. And so the only issue now is that we've come up with a different application for using this particular type of cold cathode, and that is a switch. So basically, we're turning the work that the people who went ahead to produce electrons in bulk, we want to produce them in small quantity, but specific quantity, and in a very small time interval as well as space. So since the tip and this technology has reached a point where it's down at the nanoscale, we can take advantage of that and build vertically and add gates onto the top of this. This particular image shows a single gate. Subsequent to this particular picture, a second focusing gate was added when it was used for display applications. And actually an excellent display technology was developed by these groups. They did so in part by adding a second gate on, which is a focusing gate. And we intend to do that as well. So basically, our perspective on the vacuum channel transistor is that we get the benefits of the same radiation hardness and hard environment suitability, but we have a new degree of freedom in having the third dimension in adding electronic functionality by adding additional gates. And we can actually become kind of a retro vacuum transistor in that we can also do analog and mixed signal with the same device. So by adding additional gates, we can create tetrodes or pentodes, typical differential op amps and differential engines, just by adding gates to what could be an analog or mixed signal device. But in our particular roadmap, we actually intend to use the most simple vertical vacuum transistor device, and that is by doing a simple triode with a single gate. However, it turns out that there are a lot more things that we can do. And I'll show you in a couple of minutes what I mean by that. Listed here are a number of the different benefits that we can acquire by going in a vertical direction and by adding additional gates without stretching out the distance or complicating the device significantly, and having the bottom half of all this device family be essentially the same. And so we can build on the technology of 50 years of work that has been done in the field emission array technology. These are a few pictures of their CAD captures of our design work on various different gated vertical vacuum field emission transistors. So B2 FETs with the simple triode is the smallest, most compact, and cheapest to produce, followed by a triode with a focusing ring. And then we move into a tetrode with a focusing ring, and we can go beyond that to a pentode, and even to another technology that we're developing, which is the split gate and split cathode pair, which allows us to use the focus beam that is created by using the first gate and a focusing ring, and being able to deflect electrons to one direction off of center to another. This allows us in a single device to produce an exclusive OR. Or in the case of the 2 or the 3 split device, we can essentially, in nearly completely hardware situation, emulate what a quantum 2 or 3 state quantum device would be doing in terms of its computer capability. So we can actually have, in this case, a base 3 transistor, but it also, depending on how it's wired up, can be used to emulate a 2-state quantum device. So that we can have essentially a particular result on entering the the information, the signals in the split gates as to whether or not you have a 1 or a 2 or a superposition of both of the signals at the same time that it can be used as an exclusive OR device. Now, looking at a simple 2-split gate, we can see certain significant benefits from that. But we can also go beyond the 2-split into the multi-segmented gates and end up with computers that are potentially operating on base 3 all the way to base 11 in not much more space than is occupied by a simple V2 FET transistor using a simple triad. So these are a couple of different stacks that we have designed. The earlier pictures showed the naked conductors and components so that you could see what was actually working inside, having removed all the insulation material, which makes it difficult to see what's going on. But those are actually just CAD captures, and these are the CAD stacks that have been designed for each one of those devices. And the simple processing steps that we can go through, we could use a spin type tip, which takes a little bit of a different technology in terms of creating the sharp emitter tip. But in our particular initial process design, we're going to be going through a stepwise process that creates a emitter post, exposes a shoulder, and then uses reactive ion etching isotropically to take that particular shape and end up with a curved, sharpened tip at the end. Now that's going to take some doing, but our fall back position, of course, is a very elegant design for this part of the V2 FET, and that's the spin type tip that there's been a lot of experience in fabricating. So if we have too much difficulty in producing a sharpened tip the way we want it with the reactive ion etch, we can just simply go back to the very successful spin type tip and add our gates on top of that and a collector. We see the future as being basically a VFET or a V2 FET computing capability that will be perfectly designed for high radiation, harsh environments, and broader temperature range requirements than we can currently meet with semiconductor devices. All of the conductors are metal within the device, and so there isn't the resistive heating that even occurs in a semiconductor version of a VFET. And also, we get bonus benefits, but I haven't even brought those up, about speed, which we expect to be dramatically faster than what's currently available. Cutoff frequencies for Jinhuan's early prototypes were 450 gigahertz. And we think we can do considerably better by focusing on reducing all the elements that contribute to that particular delay time. So I really believe that aerospace, outer space, and the nuclear environments are ideally suited to the capabilities of VFET and V2 FET transistors that we haven't seen possible before with typical semiconductors, which in a real sense are quite fragile when you think about it. In any case, thank you so much for your attention.
A couple of questions out before we adjourn. Anybody got a question?
I'm wondering about lifetime. So you have expansion back to the work function and the electric field, and as would be issues of chip counting over time. Like things that happen with the chips in this vacuum environment, where there's some